Do you fall off your diet on the weekends? Do you find that you do really great with your nutrition from Monday till Thursday, but then everything after that is downhill? Well, if you do, we have a special podcast for you. We're going to teach you how to break the habit and the cycle of overeating on the weekends so you can make better progress and really reach your health and fitness goals. My name's Brian Pickowitz.
And I'm Lindsay Pickowitz, and we are the head coaches at The Fitness Project, where we really specialize in helping business owners and career-focused professionals make fitness a lifestyle. The reason that we focus on this is because that's the only way to actually produce long-lasting results and still show up at your best in every area of life. Fitness doesn't have to be your life, but it has to weave into your life if you want to be healthy for the long haul.
Mm-hmm. And so today we're talking about weekend nutrition and more specifically how to break this habit of overeating, because we know that for so many people, it's a problem, right? It's a problem. It's something that so many people who are trying to get healthy, trying to make a change, struggle with, especially because the weekend is our time to celebrate. It's our time to relax. And it's really easy to get in the habit of doing good from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then like Thursday night rolls around and you're off track. And it starts this whole perpetual cycle of not really following through, and more importantly, following off track from our intentions. And so we want to be able to talk about what are some strategies that you can put in place, strategies that we've seen work really well for our lives, strategies we've seen work really well with clients, so that you can start to analyze some of your own habits and break this cycle altogether.
Yeah, so let's start with what the actual problem is here. I think that for most of us will resonate with this type of weekly experience with our diet and our exercise where Monday morning, well, really Sunday night comes and you're like, all right, tomorrow I'm going to get after it. Monday morning kicks off. We've got motivation. We know our approach for the day. We got our diet set for the week, our meals prepped or what have you, exercise laid out for the week, and we get after it, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the most intense days for work. They're the most intense and focused days on your fitness. But then Thursday evening comes and you're feeling that fatigue of the week, right? Quite honestly, you just start to feel a little bit of that taxation from so many meetings and family events and just carting people here and there and just making sure that you're showing up fully in every area of life, including for your workouts, for your meals, etc. Right? And that, although that feels really good, Thursday comes and you just really start craving that relaxation or craving the weekend. Even if you don't quite yet give in to that craving, it is strong by Thursday evening, right? Basically, what happens from there is the same cycle that you've been stuck in. Friday comes and we just kind of give ourselves that start of the exhale. We're like, all right, it's okay. I was really good all week. Like, I just got to finish up today. Got to wrap up. And so we already start to get into that relaxation. We take it a little bit easier, right? And that is the start of the whole weekend. And that's where we get really lax with our eating habits. We start to not pay as much attention. Maybe we did go out to eat or we had drinks on Thursday night and that started the cycle. But then Friday, it just compounds. Right? You kind of just say, okay, screw it. I'm done for the week. I'm good. And then we start overeating Friday night. Saturday, we have absolutely no intention whatsoever. We just want to relax, recharge, connect with people, have fun. So we don't pay any attention at all. And we're like, you know what? It's fine. We're going to start on Monday. Saturday continues. Sunday continues. And then you don't feel very good, right? You start to feel, like
Sunday's like a
groggy,
subtle reset day, but it's not fully intentional, right? It's like, I don't eat necessarily as bad as Saturday, but it's definitely not as consistent as Monday either.
Yeah, so it's basically like this whole weekend smorgasbord of events where you wake up Sunday morning and you start to get that anxiety that, okay, it's time to like dial it back in. I got to get after it this week. Oh my gosh, I didn't do anything. Oh, my weight is up. And you just start to feel that anxiety is probably the best way to put it.
Or frustration, right? It's like we don't enter the week with a level of excitement or pride or confidence. Yeah. It's like, I got to do it again tomorrow. Yeah. And it's so important to recognize this whole cycle because what Lindsay's describing leads to frustration, and then it leads us to feeling like we're not making progress. And if you repeat enough of these weekends consecutively, you give up, right? You throw in the towel. Now, when we talk about this cycle from a emotional standpoint, I think a lot of us can resonate with it, but it's really also important to understand how it's impacting our body. Right? How is it impacting our body? Why is it that we're not making progress? Because you could say to yourself, well, I've been really good. How come I eat on the weekends and I screw everything up or I gain weight? There's a few different ways to look at this, but I want to just talk about an average caloric intake and what it might look like on a normal week where this is the pattern. So it's like, let's say your target is 1,500 calories. Just to make it simple, that's you at a calorie deficit, really simple, really easy. Let's say you eat like that on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, but let's say you're at 1,700 on Thursday. It's not going to cause you to gain weight, but you're in that spot where you're like, hey, I probably drop a half a pound or I drop a pound. But then Friday rolls around, right? And we've been maybe tracking our weight all week long. We've been seeing how we're doing. But then Friday rolls around and we're at 2,200 calories, or we didn't even track it, right? That happens a lot of times. We don't even track the calories. So who knows where we're at, but realistically, it's probably like 2,200, 2,500 in some cases. Saturday rolls around and maybe we're just more free, right? And so we hit 2,500 again or 3,000, right? It's not that hard to hit 3,000 calories. Very easy to do, especially if you're having some drinks and some cocktails and some ice cream or French fries, nacho chips, right? These are usually the foods that are adding in calories that we're not conscious of, right? So you start to see how those 3 days or even those 4 days of eating at a calorie deficit are completely negated by having 2 days where we're at 3,000. Right? We're putting our body back at either maintenance or a surplus. And that's why a lot of people step on the scale on Sunday and their weight's up. So it's like we can do really great for 3 or 4 days, but if we're not addressing those 2 days, and it's really those 2 or 3 meals, right? If we're being honest, it's 2 or 3 meals that if we change them would totally rework our nutrition, would totally rework our intake for the week. Those are really the big dominoes that if we can learn how to address them, makes it so much easier for us to see the results that we want come to fruition, but also it makes it so we can feel good, right? Because those foods that we eat, right? Like if I think of myself, if I go out and I have 4 or 5 drinks or 6 drinks, let's say I'm having a real party. I'm not much of a drinker, so that would be a party for me. Well, the next day, I might have had fun in the moment, but the next day I'm going to feel like garbage, right? I'm going to feel the effects of that alcohol. Or if we go out and have a bunch of ice cream and pizza, I'm going to feel the effects, especially if I'm not mindful, right? So the whole point in awareness is not just that it's a struggle for our results and our goals. It's also putting this taxation on our emotions. It's putting a taxation on how we feel throughout the week. And when you're carrying that into Sunday and then bringing that into Monday, it's like you're really not at your best. Right? I think that's plain and simple. Like you're not showing up at your best because of the cycle. So you might be getting that joy from Saturday, but it's stealing the joy that could be on Sunday or on Monday.
I think it also, I don't think it's discussed very often, but I think the weekend cycle also can create a lot of resentment. Like you can start to resent yourself. You can get frustrated with yourself, but then you can also start to resent the people around you who maybe you're enjoying those meals with or enjoying those drinks with. The people who are celebrating, you start to get really frustrated or even resentful of them. Like, oh, well, if only they weren't drinking and then I wouldn't be drinking. It's like, but you almost remove the responsibility and ownership from yourself. So it's not always that you tend to like just beat yourself up and beat yourself to oblivion. Sometimes it creates resentment to other people when it's completely not their fault, right? So it's really important that we look at this whole weekend pattern and we build enough pain around it to say, I actually need to change this. Like I need to figure out a better way to do it. Now, we are going to teach you how to do that. We're not just going to say, okay, well, stay on track. Like, all right, well, just get on it on the weekends because that's not enough. It's not specific enough. You've tried that. It doesn't work, right? But we can see how if we repeat the weekend fall off over and over again, like we said, you lose momentum, you get frustrated. Eventually, if you repeat it enough, your body stays the same or you gain weight even though you're trying really hard Monday through Thursday. And eventually it just leads to complete give up, throw the papers in the air. Nothing's going to work anyway, right? Which is not what we want. So what do we do instead? And before we go there, maybe why are we like this?
Yeah, why are we
why
like
are
this?
we like this? Why do we do this?
Why do we fall into this pattern? Well, the first thing is if you fall into the pattern of overeating, it's most likely because you lose focus, right? You lose focus towards Thursday. Thursday rolls around. You've been really focused Monday through Tuesday, through Wednesday, through Thursday. And all of a sudden Friday rolls around. It's like, oh, it's my time to relax. I've done a good job. I've put in the work. And so it's this lack of ability to push through to the other side that actually causes us pain. And you can almost imagine the reason why we're overeating is because there's really 3 C's. That's what we were talking about. It's like 3 C's of overeating on the weekends, right? So the 3 C's come down to, first, we're celebrating, right? We're celebrating the weekend. We're celebrating a birthday. We're celebrating a holiday. There's something that we are celebrating. There's also a sense of connection that comes on the weekend, right? And food often is the connector for a lot of us. It enhances the experience, right? If I'm receiving a sense of love and connection with you on the weekend, Linz, and then we add food to it, not only am I getting the bonding, but I'm also getting the dopamine, right? I'm getting all this extra layer of connection, and it's also something we're sharing together. And there's also the third, which is calm. Like, a lot of us are just looking to relax, looking to recharge, and the way that we recharge is by not giving ourselves any rules.
Yes.
Right? I don't want to follow any rules. We had one client who was talking on one of our team calls about the weekend. She's like, I almost want to be disobedient on the weekend. Like, I want to not have any rules. I want to not have any structure. I don't want to fall into the trap of having to be good, right? And so because of that mindset, she kind of became disobedient, right? That was her description. She's like, I become disobedient. I want to be bad. And it's like, okay. Recognizing that that's actually you wanting to have calm and relaxation, right? That's the thing you're looking for, which is relief. It's great because once we have awareness around, hey, I want to celebrate, I want to connect, I want to have a sense of calm, then we can identify healthier routes to go about getting that outcome or that reward.
So if that's why we fall off track on the weekends, then it's understandable. Right? But what are we going to do about it? What are we going to change? There are a few different things that we're going to walk you through that can really break this habit for you permanently if you keep applying them. So the first most important thing to do to change the pattern is just build awareness, which is effectively what you're doing here. Just by thinking, okay, well, why actually do I fall off on the weekends? A lot of times we just don't think about it, right? We just never stop to think, well, why does that happen? Oh, well, and you start to question it and challenge it and wonder if there's a way that you could do it differently. Just that awareness of why you do it is super, super helpful because with that awareness, we can start to change it.
And that awareness might also be what you do, right? So it's like, why do I do it? What do I do? What are the foods that I tend to turn to?
Yep.
What are the things that I'm seeking from this food, right? Like, oh, we always go out for drinks on Friday. And we had one client talking about like, oh, I love to drink gin with my friends. It's like, okay, that's great. Now, it doesn't mean you have to remove gin, but if there's other habits around food that come with that celebration, well, maybe that's something we have to change.
Yep.
In the same category, it's like, oh, well, I really love this dessert, or I really love eating these chips when I go out to eat. It's like, okay, so it doesn't mean I have to remove the chips, but I have to be aware of what's happening. I have to be aware of what's motivating me, what the actual actions are, what my behavior looks like on the weekend, because that's going to give me a stepping stone to change.
And then next, from awareness, we have to make a decision. If you have awareness of what you do, why you do it, and you just say, oh, like I should really work on that. That's not a decision. That's an observation. Decisions are the most impactful action step that we can take when we're thinking about changing our life, which sounds obvious, but we don't do it. So if we have awareness of this weekend pattern and we make a decision to change it, what do you think is going to follow? Much more intentional action because you've made a commitment to yourself. It doesn't mean you need to be perfect. You're not committing to never eating something fun on the weekends again, right? Which maybe is the default or the expectation to make a decision to change. But really what you're committing to is finding a better way. You're committing to finding a way to stay on track or to be healthy Sunday through Sunday, i.e., make it a part of your lifestyle, make it a part of who you are. And then we can follow the next few action items we're going to give you. But before we make a decision, it's just going to be water under the bridge. Mm-hmm. It's going to go in one ear and out the other. You're not going to remember it, and nothing's really going to change. And then you'll be frustrated because you're like, I'm listening to all of this information. I know what my problem is, but did you make a decision to change it? Mm-hmm. That is extremely important.
And so once we've decided to change, what do we change, right? So we have awareness that this is what I do from Friday or Thursday night until Sunday. Mm-hmm. I've decided that this is a problem, which is really what you're saying. Like, this is a problem.
This is a problem.
It keeps me from my goal. Mm-hmm. A problem is something that conflicts with your desire, right? I want this and I'm not getting it, or I can't have it because this thing is keeping me from getting there. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I've decided to start taking care of this problem. The first thing we have to do is, when we know we're starting to teeter on the edge, we have to refocus. Right? So going into Thursday night or even Thursday during the day, I have to re-anchor to my goal. Or Friday, I have to say, okay, I'm going to get a workout in today because I know I'm going to go out with friends and I want to make sure that I make a good decision. So I'm going to put in the habits that keep me grounded. You have to recommit to your goals throughout the process, throughout the weekend. And quite frankly, if this is something that's important to you, you have to recommit to your goals every single day. And you're probably going to have to recommit to your goals several times throughout the day.
Yep.
Or you're going to find that there's moments where you're like, oh, I just want to quit. I just want to give in. I just want this to be gone. And it's like, okay, hey, I have to change my state. I have to change my focus. I got to recommit, right? And so when you're in that space of recognizing you're teetering on the edge, that's when you come back and say, what's my intention? What is my result? Why is my result important? And how can I make sure that I strategize around this so I can still get some of the things I want, which might be connection, love, a sense of peace. But how can I do it in a healthier way? How can I do it in a way that meets my needs in a more productive manner? If we can start to recommit in that manner, in that way, then the actions that we're going to find, they're going to be totally unique to us in our life. They're going to be totally unique to the circumstances we're in, if we're traveling or on vacation or going to a wedding, whatever. But the decision to commit and recommit leads us to finding that strategy.
Yeah, and you can see how those three elements of changing this pattern are they're all almost preparation, right? They're before you actually get to the weekend. Now, we would not leave you with that, right? Because that's all in your mind. Now we need to also talk tactically, right? Strategically speaking, okay, how do I approach the weekend differently? What should I specifically do differently? The most important thing, this is like fundamental 80-20, 20% of your behaviors will impact 80% of your results, right? So what are those 20% behaviors? One of those things is keeping your, what we call Keystone habit on the weekends. So Monday through Thursday, you probably do something very specific in the morning when you're on track, right? Maybe you drink water first thing. Maybe you have a little morning routine that you do just to bring your mind to center. On the weekend, do you still do that? Saturday morning when you wake up, even if it's a little bit of later time, you slept in a little bit, do you still do that morning routine? Do you still do that one action that tends to have a positive effect on all your decisions for the rest of the day? Probably not, right? It probably looks different on the weekends. If you can keep that one keystone habit that makes you so successful Monday through Thursday, Friday and Saturday and Sunday, you are going to be much more likely to follow through on the rest of the healthy behaviors that you've already said you wanted to commit to. So keep your keystone habit, which is that one habit that positively impacts the rest, on your weekends. That is very tactical and specific.
And to build off that, you also want to start to think and plan ahead, right? So if I have those habits in place, those are kind of like my minimums. Those are the things that I do in the morning to set myself up for the rest of the day. But once I have that habit in place, I want to plan ahead. Right? I need to plan ahead for, what am I doing for my nutrition? Oh, are we going out to eat? Are we going out to a restaurant with friends? Like, what are we doing? Is there a celebration? Is it just a day where I want to sit in and just relax and just not have any plans.
Right.
Right? Because that tends to lead, like if you don't have a plan, right? Saying, oh, I'm just going to relax. That means I don't have a plan for nutrition either.
Yep.
Which means I might order in, right? I might just end up saying, well, screw it. Let's get a pizza.
Who cares? Yeah.
So I need to have a plan. I need to have some form of a plan, even if that's, hey, you know what? I know we're going out to dinner tonight. I know we're going to eat this way. For example, I'll use myself as an example. We got pizza the other day. Buffalo chicken pizza. The greatest pizzas of all time are always buffalo chicken pizzas. And for Lindsay and I was like, hey, I know that I want to have this pizza. I know that it's probably 800 to 1,000 calories. I also know that my BMR is roughly, we'll say 22 to 2,300 calories. Okay, so if the calories that I'm intaking on this pizza are roughly 1,000, all right, that means I have roughly 1,200 calories for the rest of the day. Okay, so I'm just going to be intentional with planning for the foods that I'm going to eat that are healthy and nourishing for those other 1,200 calories. Mm-hmm. Those other foods I'm going to ingest need to help me reach my long-term goal, and I'm still going to find the balance to enjoy this short-term indulgence of pizza.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good way to put it. And for me personally, when I'm doing really quote unquote well on the weekends, I have a very particular routine, and it's very similar to the rest of my week. It's just a little bit slower. So I'll wake up. I even like to wake up early still on the weekends, but that's just me personally. I'm more of a morning person. But I like to wake up early. I like to go slow with my routine. I read my Bible. I drink a cup of coffee. But every single day on the weekends, my keystone habit is I drink 32 ounces of water. No matter what. I always drink 32 ounces of water before I have coffee, before I have breakfast, before I have anything else in my day. And that's my keystone, and that tends to lead to healthier actions later. Another keystone that's also really, really helpful for me when I'm staying on track is I eat a healthy breakfast. I tend to find that when I am not on track, we'll say that, when I overeat on the weekends or when I'm off, usually I have absolutely no schedule or intention whatsoever for my days. I tend to not eat breakfast for a really long time. I have coffee for breakfast, and then I eat whatever is available and whatever I feel like having around like noon, and that's my first meal. It's a pretty big meal. I don't take into account like us going out to eat or having ice cream later. And then by the time that it's 4 o'clock, I'm really hungry again because I haven't eaten much. So then I have another meal, but then we go out at like 6, and then I eat that because I don't want to not eat. And then I have ice cream. And then before I know it, I've had a day of overeating. I haven't really worked out. I didn't go for many walks. And I'm like, man, like I wasn't productive at all today. I wasn't focused. So it can easily cascade is the point, right? It can easily cascade. So you want to start at the front, have some type of morning or intentional keystone habits, whether it's drinking the water or eating a healthy breakfast or even getting a quick workout or a quick walk, right? That was going to change the whole trajectory of your weekend if you can keep those in place.
Yeah, and I think it's really just important to recognize that you can always resist the inertia, or you can resist the inertia of a few decisions that weren't productive, weren't on track, and get back on track. So if you have we'll say a bad Thursday, don't make Friday worse, right? If you start to if you have a pancake breakfast on Saturday, it's not going to ruin the day, but still, even that simple keystone habit of, hey, I wake up and I drink water. It's like, how can we start to put some healthier, it's like the reverse of Jenga, right? Jenga, you're removing. Now we're putting blocks back in place so that the tower stays up.
Yes, there you go.
So I think it just, a couple quick fire things to consider, right? Build awareness, right? We talked about that. Build awareness, decide to make a change. If you recognize that a pattern is not serving you, take action. And taking action to change it does not mean you're perfect. It just means that when you recognize it, you change it. When you recognize it, you change it. It's going to show up, right? You're still going to feel like, oh my God, I'm out with friends and I want to eat the pub cheese, right? I want to have the crackers. It's like, okay, well, hey, why don't you take a couple of the crackers and put them on a plate?
Sounds so good.
But don't overeat them, right? And so you start to be mindful about the decisions you're making. From there, lean into a keystone habit on the weekend, right? Stay with a walking habit, or if you can get a workout in, or having a breakfast, or sitting with yourself and giving yourself a couple moments, just say, hey, what would be great today, right? And I understand, right? You figure out what habits are going to work great for you, but then from there, just plan ahead. Plan what you're going to do the best you can, right? A half-assed plan is better than zero plan at all, right? So if it can't be perfect, that's okay. Figure out how to make it work without it being perfect. And the last thing is just figure out what your healthy alternatives are, right? So if it is, hey, I'm gonna have a healthy breakfast, I know we're gonna go out for lunch and dinner, right? Maybe I'm eating lunch with this group of people, and then we have a party later in the day.
Yep.
Well, maybe that lunch at that place that's not my favorite, I'm just gonna get a nice salad, right? And it's interesting because salads these days are actually really delicious, right? We think about 10 years ago, it was very boring, loaded with ranch and cheese. Like a lot of the salad options now are incredibly healthy and do taste good.
Yeah, decadent.
So it's like, hey, on that one meal, I'm going to plan to eat healthier there, but then later I'll indulge you a little bit. I'll be more flexible.
Yeah.
But planning for those little healthy changes, even if it's a healthier breakfast wrap or a healthier snack when you're bringing the kids to their sporting event, whatever you can find, it's those little, like I said, little Jenga pieces that you're putting back to keep yourself. So when you get to Sunday, you're like, you know what? Damn it, I crushed it.
Yeah, and that's the last piece that I would tie it down with is make sure that you have an assessment at the end. Like every weekend, if this is a pattern you're very intentionally trying to break, make sure that you have some moment to say, how did that go? Right? Don't just like roll through it, because then that kind of, it puts a lot of pressure. It makes you feel like you have to be perfect. You have to have it fixed now. But you've probably been in this habit since you were a teenager. If you really think about it, right? That's when you start getting conditioned with school, Monday through Friday type of routine. You wait for the weekend.
And mom and dad probably celebrated
Mom and dad
the
did the
same
same.
way.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, you've been like, this has been a pattern. Work hard Monday through Friday, relax Saturday, Sunday, do nothing for decades. So don't expect you're going to fix it with one little weekend, right? Like give yourself the chance to iterate, assess. And then you can actually start to say, what's working? Let me do more of that. Okay, I felt really proud of the work I put in this weekend. Why? What did I do differently? Did I feel like I was trapped? Did I still get a sense of freedom and variety? Right? Just give yourself those questions, and that's going to really help you break through this pattern for good.
And I want to can I get one last piece in here?
Tie it down.
Tie it down. One of the most helpful things to recognize about any habit you're changing is what need it meets and what reward you're receiving from it. So if you find that eating a certain way makes you feel self-soothed, makes you feel relaxed, understand that what you're actually seeking is not the food, it's the feeling of relaxation. It's the feeling of calm.
Yeah.
You're not seeking the food. The food is just a means to the end. So if you can recognize the end, doesn't mean you have to not eat, doesn't mean you have to not eat enjoyable food, but recognize that there is a healthier way for you to meet that need. And it's just about testing, right? It's just about testing. And the more present we can become, the easier it is to get our needs met without feeling like we have to eat or add a stimulus. Starting that practice, starting those processes, it can be life-changing. So we hope this is helpful. We hope this helps you on the weekend. We know that you're human. We're humans too. So this is an enjoyable time. We want to make sure that we still relax and connect and get that sense of celebration in our lives. It's just about finding healthier ways. So let us know in the comment section below what your big takeaway from this podcast is. If you're on Apple Podcasts, feel free to screenshot this and shout us out in your stories with your big takeaway so we can hear from you. And more than anything, go out this weekend, right? Because I know you're watching this and listening to this as you're going into the weekend, because it's the only time that it would really be applicable, and conquer your day.
Nice. Cheers.
Cheers.